Hello, welcome to A Thing I Made. The thing I made that I am talking about today. I made all of this, but today I'm talking about this microverb. This is a reverse engineering clone of this old 90s reverb unit from Alesis. I reverse engineered it, figured out where all the things go, and turned it into a Eurorack module, which I'll be showing the details of that in a little bit. For now, let's listen to what it sounds like. So it's got a bunch of different settings here, 16 of them. These settings are not in the same order as on the original because I wired it up wrong. But this is my first prototype of it, so that's all right. This one is the reverse, and then we have my favorite, which is the large 7. I like large reverbs. And now let's bring in some delay for truly magical. Alright, so while we're listening to that, let's take a look at this. I'll pull it apart here. There's two main boards here. There's the digital board and the analog board. On the original, this is just one board. And I got it a little smaller, I'd say. Not a lot smaller, because the digital board has to have all of these components. This is an ASIC that is specific to the reverb unit. This is a DAC, a digital to analog converter. These are 16 kilobit dynamic RAM chips. So there's 4 of them, so that means there's 8 kilobytes of RAM. And this is a little different from what's in the original. In the original there was a 64 kilobit EEPROM, and this is a 1 megabit NOR flash. So it works the same, except this one is 64, 128, 512, 1024. It's 16 times bigger. The reason I chose a larger chip is because it's actually smaller physically, so that let me make the board a little bit more compact by using this PLCC package in a socket. The fact that this is 16 times larger than the original means that there's 16 times as much space. And so I have this ROM bank switch on the front, which will switch between 2 different banks. The first thing I'm planning to do with that is that the Microverb and the Microverb 2 are exactly the same except for what is on the ROM. I'm also going to dump the ROM from the Microverb 2, and I'm going to put both of them on this one chip, so then I can switch between them using this switch. But that still leaves me with 8 times as much space. So I have these additional 3 jumpers on the back where I can put jumper blocks there, and I can configure it to select between 7 other pairs of banks. The next thing I'm planning to do with this is get a Microverb 2, which I understand, although I don't own one yet, I understand it is mostly the same as the Microverb, except it's programmable. The Microverb came first, and then the Microverb was just a shrunk and minimal version of the Microverb 2. So once I get a Microverb, I will be able to figure out how exactly it's creating the contents of these ROMs. They are not impulse responses. There's something else, and I don't know what. Somebody probably knows, but I don't know who knows, so I'll have to figure it out for myself. So let's move on to the analog board. This is the board, the only board that I actually got assembled by JLC PCB, and it's mostly assembled. This is mostly op amps and a comparator and a bunch of passives. On the other side of this, we can see there's some capacitors, film capacitors, and electrolytic capacitors. And you can see here I didn't have the right size electrolytics, so I had to move them onto the other side of the board. Not ideal, but it's a prototype. There's also the matter of the rotary switch. I used a different rotary switch than was on the original. There's not very many 16 position rotary switches available these days that aren't super tiny. You can see it from the side here, and it's got a nice click. However, because the rotary switch was thicker than the other components that I needed to put on the front panel, I actually needed to add an additional PCB, a mezzanine, I'll call it, and we can see the board for that over here. So it houses the 4 jacks and the 3 potentiometers, and it brings them closer to the panel so that they're the right spacing. And then the toggle switches actually work great, even better. Usually I just put them on the same level as the other components, and the bushing sticks up about a 1/4 inch. But since I was putting this switch farther back, it actually worked just perfectly, and the bushing just barely protrudes. Also, this is my first 4-layer board. They were able to route this with just a 2-layer board back in the 80s. Did I say 90s earlier? I can't remember. Anyways, 86. But they have a larger board, so they have a little more room to play with, and I also used surface mount PLCC sockets so that I had an easier time routing. Well, I hope you have enjoyed listening to this and seeing how it's made. Have a good one.